Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Philip and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this amazing game of Bubble Shooter on Scratch. And in this game you have a ball at the bottom of the screen and you have to use that ball to hit other balls that are coming down. And basically you have to hit the same color ball. So since I have a pink ball here, I have to hit the pink balls. If you have blue, you have to hit blue. Orange, you have to hit orange. And basically you have to try to hit. If you don't hit the same color, then it will speed up and it will come down faster, and that's not good because if they reach at the bottom of the screen, it'll be game over. And then there's also a score here that counts how many balls you have popped. There's also two cool ideas in this game. Number one, the chain reaction that's being caused when you hit a ball and there's a ball of the same color right next to it, and so on. And those will pop as well. So, and the second idea is that we will use lists. We will learn how to make and use lists in this game. So let's get started. Click the create button, and the first thing we're going to do is get the ball that will create a wall that we will hit down. So let's get rid of this cat, and Scratch already has a ball for us. So let's go ahead and use their ball. Alright. So this ball is actually perfect because it has multiple costumes with different colors, and that's what we want. The wall will be of different color balls. It's a bit big, so let's make it a bit smaller. And basically what we want to do, we want to create rows and columns of the ball. So first let's focus on making one row. So to make a row, we obviously need clones of the ball. So let's go ahead, and when green flag clicked, we will hide the original, and then let's start the show because we want to show the clones. This. Alright. And basically, let's say we want one of the lines to be 10 balls wide. So we'll repeat 10 times, and we'll basically want to create a clone. And then when you create a clone, the clone has the same, like it's the same exact as the original. So it has the same position. So we don't want it to have the same position. We want every time the clone to move a bit that way. So for that, we'll just move the original a bit that way. So then the clone will be created like a bit more right than the original, than the past one. So let's try 50. Change X by 50. They are two. Oh, and at the beginning, let's position it. Let's try like negative 150 and 50. Alright, let's test now. They're two spread out, so let's try making this 30. Now they're two bunched up, so let's try 35. And now they're just a bit too spread out. We want them to touch because we will need them to touch to make them explode later on. So let's try something a bit smaller, like 33. And that, I think, is perfect. Next, let's make 5 lines. So basically, we'll repeat 5 times. They'll repeat 10 times. So repeat 5 times, it'll make a line. And basically, after the repeat 10 times, so after it makes a line, we want to, so since in the repeat 5 times, it'll make another line, but we want the line to be, well, first of all, we want it to start back here. So let's set ZX to what it was here, so negative 150. And then, since the ball is a perfect circle, we want it to go up the same amount that it went to the right when it created here. So we said change X by 33, so this time we want it to go up, so change Y by 33. Alright, let's test it. And there we have 5 lines. Next, let's make the ball that will shoot the wall. So we're basically going to choose the same exact sprite we used for the ball that made up the wall. So here it is. First we see it's too big. Let's make it the same size as the ball. And then let's name it shooter so we don't get confused. Alright. Then after that, basically, we want it to, when green flag clicked, forever, we want it to if I click, so we'll wait until I click the mouse. So wait until there's this block mouse down. Wait until mouse down. So when I click, and before the wait until mouse down, let's position it. Let's try 0 with negative 150. Alright, and then wait until mouse down, and then after the wait until mouse down, we'll keep on moving the ball until it touches one of these balls. So repeat until. We'll want to move some stuff. Oh, repeat until touching ball. And we want it to move, let's say 10 steps, and if it's on the edge, bounce. Now make sure before the repeat until, we have to point it towards the mouse pointer, because otherwise it'll just go right. It'll just go not towards where you point, and we want it to go towards where you point. So let's start it, and I click, and it goes over there, and you can see that if it hits a ball, it comes back. Now let's try to bounce it against the walls. It works, but there's this, you know that light thing? There's a shade on the ball. You can tell that it moves, and that's not really, it doesn't look that cool. So let's go to the costumes, and you can see here there's this light. So let's select this, and basically let's make the light right in the middle so that you won't tell if it moves, if it turns. Alright, next we'll want to make two different costumes, so two different colors appear for the shooter and the ball. So let's go to the shooter, and basically the shooter costumes. Basically we'll have the orange ball and the blue ball. And let's go ahead and put the shade of the blue ball in the middle. So let's select it, fill, and then put the shadow light thing in the middle. Alright, now before we mouse down, so before we click, we want to switch costume to pick random 1 to 2. So one of the yellow or blue. And we'll go to the ball, the one that's coming down. And before we create a clone, we'll do the same exact code. Switch costume to pick random 1 to 2. Alright, let's test and make sure two different ones appear. And there we have two different colors appear. So next, what we want to do is we want, when it starts as a clone, if this shooter hits one of the balls and it has the same costume as the ball, so the same color as the ball, then we want it to just disappear, the ball that it hit. So we'll do forever if it's touching the shooter, and if it's touching the shooter, then we'll do another if instead of it, and we have, so if the costume number of this one will equal, and then we have this really cool block, something of something. So like of shooter, we can do the costume number of shooter. So if the costume number equals the costume number of shooter, then we'll just delete the clone. There we go. Let's test it. And we shoot here. And we can see that it destroys multiple balls. And that is because here it says if touching shooter, and then this guy, the shooter, doesn't realize that it's touching the ball. And it keeps on going. It keeps moving 10 steps, and then it hits another ball. And it will make that ball delete this clone, and the other ball that is touching delete the clone. So they both delete this clone. So for this, to solve it, let's get a wait to give the shooter some time to realize that it's touching the ball. So we'll wait something like 0.1 seconds before we delete the clone. Now let's test it. And I have a blue ball. Let's try to hit a blue ball that is coming down. That worked. And let's hit the yellow one. And now let's hit opposite colors to make sure that it doesn't delete it. Alright, so the blue hit the yellow, and the yellow didn't disappear. And now I got a blue again, so Alright, here's the yellow, and if I hit a blue, it won't disappear. So that's good. Next, we want to cause a chain reaction. So when the shooter touches a ball, we want that ball to disappear, but right before it disappears, the balls around it, they need to, like, say, if they're touching that ball that got hit by the shooter, and it's the same color, then they need to also disappear, and so on. They will tell the ones around those, and then around those, and so on. So, you might think that all we need here is an if. And if it's touching a ball that exploded, so like if it's touching a ball that exploded, then they need to explode too if they're the same color. But we only have if touching a different sprite or the mouse pointer or the edge, but not the same sprite as the one that you're coding in. So to do that, we will just need to make another sprite that'll position itself over the ball that got hit by a shooter and needs to explode. So let's choose a sprite, and we'll just use the same ball again. Now this ball we will name Exploding Ball. And let's make the size the same as the other, so 75. Next we'll want to create a clone of the exploding ball wherever there is a ball that we want to disappear. So let's go to the ball code, and the first time we want that to happen is right here. So let's create clone of the exploding ball. And now let's see that the exploding ball gets created. It doesn't get created where this ball is. So there are two ways to make it appear where the ball is. Number one, we can use two variables, one for the y, one for the x. And basically, that won't work because there are multiple balls in the wall, and there are multiple balls that touch the ball that we want to hide. And the values will get mixed up. So we'll just use lists. Lists are basically variables that can hold multiple values in order. So let's go ahead and make a list, and we're going to name this, the first one, Exploding Ball X, and then we'll also make one for the Exploding Ball Y. Okay, and then we see here that there are multiple blocks you can use for lists. We can add something to Exploding Ball X or Exploding Ball Y or any of the lists. We can delete something from one of the lists. We can delete everything from the lists. We can insert something, and there are a lot more. But for this game, we're just going to use 4 different blocks. The add something to one of the lists, the delete something of one of the lists, or delete all of one of the lists, or the item of a specific position of one of the lists. So basically, we're just going to add the values, so the x and y position, to the two lists. So let's do that. The x position to the exploding ball x, and the y position to the exploding ball y. Because we need the exploding ball to know that where the positions are, so it can go into those positions. We're going to go to the exploding ball code, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. We're going to start as a clone. We want to go to, and then we want to go to item 1 of exploding ball X for the X, and then item 1 of exploding ball Y for the Y. And then we want to delete item 1 of both of them, of both of the lists, so that it won't do the same value. Alright, and then we're just going to show. And we will hide the original. Alright, so let's test it. And let's move these lists down because they're kind of in the way. And if I hit, let's see what happens. If I hit a ball, let's see what happens. The color of the ball changes, the color of the ball that I hit changes, and that is because the exploding ball appears on top of that one, on top of the ball that it hit. And also, if you could tell, some items got added to the lists, and then they got deleted. So back to the ball. We're talking. So it changes color, and basically we need to, after the show, we need to wait a bit so that the other balls realize that they're touching an exploding ball. So let's wait a bit, like 0.1 seconds. And then after that, we'll just delete the clone. So delete the exploding ball. So let's test it. And here, let's hit this right here. And you can see that works. Let's try one more. That works. Let's try a blue ball now. And that works too, because the exploding ball disappears. Next, we want to make the chain reaction. So let's go to the ball. And basically here you can see if touching the shooter, then it creates a clone of the exploding ball and it positions it over this ball. So basically you want to do the same thing if it touches the exploding ball. We just got to change this to exploding ball and this, and make sure this is costume number. Alright, now let's test it. And let's hit this yellow. And we can see it works. And also, if you looked at the lists, you could see that the items appeared and then they got deleted. Now let's test the blue because we just tested the yellow and it worked. Let's test the blue. And we can see that it doesn't work. And this is because the exploding ball is always yellow. We never made it change costumes. We want to let the exploding ball know that we need to change its costume. So right before it creates a clone of the exploding ball, we're just going to broadcast a message that basically, we're going to call it like, I don't know, set costume. And then when it receives, it'll change the costume to the same costume as the shooter. So let's broadcast, let's call it set costume. It's actually better to put the broadcast before the wait so that we can do it as soon as possible. But now let's go to the exploding ball, and when I receive set costume, we're just going to switch costume to the costume number of the shooter. Now let's test it. And I have a blue ball. Let's hit the blue. And that works. I have another blue one. Let's try to get a yellow one this time. Okay, there we go, yellow one. Let's hit these yellow ones. And you can see that it works. Next, we will make a cool effect instead of this wait. So let's get rid of this wait. And we'll just put a repeat, let's say 10 times. Change color, where is it? Pixelate effect by 25, maybe that's good. And then delete the clone. Let's test it. And I think that looks really cool, so yeah, that's good. So I want to make the wall come down. So basically, forever, we want it to move. And to move, we will need to, oops, not there, here. Put the forever there, and then inside of the forever, we want it to come down. We want it to move down. So for this, we'll need to broadcast a new message, come down, or move down. Let's call it move down. Alright, and then when I receive move down, we will want it to come down, so change y by negative something. Let's try -1. Let's test it. It's supposed to come down. That's going a bit too fast. Let's try negative 0.5. That's better, maybe a bit less. Negative 0.3. And that should be perfect. Next, what we want to do is make a new row of balls appear when the balls reach a certain point. So for this, we'll make an if inside of this forever, and we will basically say if the y position is smaller than, so if it's lower than, let's do 150. So if it's lower than something around this point right here, then we will want to basically create another line. So basically this exact code we did up here. Okay, but these have to be before the line because it has to create the line when it's already done those. Alright, so let's test it. And let's wait for it to reach 150, lower than 150. And we can see a new line appears up there, which is good. Next, we will want to say game over if the balls reach a certain point down here. So for this, we will use an if, and we will put it in the clones, because the clones are the ones that will reach the bottom, not the original one. The original one will stay somewhere up here. So if the Y position is smaller than negative 1, let's try 165. So if it's smaller than negative 165, then we'll want to say game over. And stop all. Alright, let's test it now. And let's actually try to play it. So, and wait for them to reach the bottom. So, okay. And you see they reach the bottom and they say game over. Next, we'll want there to be some kind of penalty if we hit a wrong colored ball. So basically, what I'm going to do for the penalty is just make them come down faster. So for this, we will need a variable that I will just call speed. Okay. Oh, whoops. Okay, so I'm just going to call it speed. And then at the beginning, we'll set speed to 0. To negative 0.3, because that's the original value that we were moving down with. Then here it'll be speed. And then basically the penalty is if it's the complete opposite of this if. So if it's touching shooter, but it's not the same costume. So basically we will use an if else here instead of the if. So let's drag the if else block here. And this will happen, and if else, in the else, we will just change the speed variable by negative 0.3. Alright, let's test it. And when we hit the wrong color, it comes down faster. Here, let's do it again so it comes even faster. You can see that it definitely comes faster, and you can also see here the speed variable. It gets smaller, so that means it goes faster. So that's good. Let's hide these lists. And next, let's add a score variable. So make a variable. Let's name it score. Okay. And at the beginning, let's set score to 0. And then every time it creates an exploding ball, that means it deletes the clone, so that means you should get up by 1. So here, when I start as a clone in the exploding ball, we'll change score by 1. Okay, let's hide the speed, and let's make the score big, large, and let's put it right at the top. And next, I'm gonna just add 3 different colors instead of 2. You can do as many as you want. You can do 2, you can do 4, whatever, or 3 or anything. So I'm just we have to switch this to 1 to 3, 1 to 3, for the shooter, 1 to 3, and then make sure for the shooter that for the third color, you make the light in the middle. So there we go, we put the light in the middle. Alright, so now there are 3 colors. Let's just make sure there are 3 colors by testing it. You can see there are 3 colors. Next, let's add a background. So I'm going to use, let's see, I'm gonna use this. I think I'm gonna use this tunnel background. And where is it? Okay, there it is. And now let's name it. I'm gonna name it Bubble Shooter. And I'm gonna save the project. Save the project. And now let's play the game a bit, just to see how it is. So it's it's pretty cool game, and as you can see, it is working. So that's good. So yeah, it looks like everything's working and it's good. So thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video, and I'll see you next time for another game we can make on Scratch.